Oh yeah, I'm with this. Classic record, man. I'll never forget. I was in Queens one time, and I can't remember who was. Maybe it might have been Butch Rock. Yeah, he might have been playing the record. Nori's DJ. Shout out to Butch Rock. I hope I'm getting his name right. It's been years since I've seen him. But the point is that so I'm at the spot in Queens, and they played this record. I love this song. Obviously, I'm a hip hop fan, right? So I'm there, ain't no half stepping, having a good time, dancing. I'm like rhyming along, of course. And some dude who was like a little bit older from me, older than me. He's from Queens. He was like, "How you know this record?" Right? Because he was surprised that someone my age would even know this song. I'm like, I'm a hip hop fan. Of course I know this fucking record. This is like Kane's most famous record. How do I not know this shit? In fact, not only is the song famous, I used to be a huge fan of the Mariah Carey Dream 11. I think I've talked about this. My mom used to play that record all the time when I was younger. And I heard that first before Kane. So I always loved this beat and this like general vibe. And so when I found out that actually they got the idea from Kane, it was like, oh shit, I gotta listen to the Kane version. Or I think I probably just heard the Kane version and then it reminded me of the Mariah Carey version. Both are fantastic songs, by the way. So anyway, let's talk about Kane being damn near disrespected on the UK stage. I actually think that this is one of the more interesting things that has happened this year. I did hear about it and I meant to talk to you guys about it. So for those of y'all who are not familiar, Kane is, doing this set in the UK somewhere. And this group called Hijack, or one of the guys from Hijack, Kamani Sly or whatever his name is, comes up on stage in the ski mask and is just like there, just the whole time, like he just bum rushes fucking Kane's stage and just stands in the corner interrupting his shit basically. And Kane is like, what the fuck, like, who are you, type of thing, or like, what's really going on here? And the guy just doesn't budge, obviously, and Kane gets irritated and it nearly comes to blows. Security finally kind of escort him out. Now, why I think this is interesting is obviously, from what I believe, Hijack or someone from Hijack, if it's not a fake post, made an Instagram post afterward saying, here we are, like, we've basically come all the way out for this event. We left our families and, just to come out here and we're being disrespected. We don't get the chance to perform. UK's out here dick sucking, pardon my language, but essentially the Americans as usual. And they're not making way for UK artists that have paved the way and all that kind of shit, right? So it kind of, what I think is interesting is obviously it played on this rift. Not rift, it's not a huge rift or anything, but sort of like this idea of relationship between the UK and the United States when it comes to hip hop. So anyway, one of the DJs who was there, and I forget his name off top, but I did find a Facebook post that he kind of made to clarify what was going on. Because apparently he was like, look, listen, Hijack and them Zacorny, like, they missed their slot. They weren't even really supposed to be there necessarily. Like, they got kind of added to the show afterward. And from what I understand, the promoter was like, yeah, you guys can come through, and they had a particular set time and they just missed that set time essentially. And so then it was like, well, we'll have them go on after Kane, to end it. But I guess Hijacking them weren't trying to hear that, or, again, this clout, right? They're just hot-headed and all this kind of shit. So that's apparently the story. So it looks like it's very much the fault of Hijack. Let's change this. But the point is, what I found really interesting about this, like I said, was this concept of UK rap versus American rap. As some of y'all might be noticing in the community section, I posted like some UK records that I've been listening to. So shout out to the King LXO, my man, who has been recommending some UK records that I can listen to, like to get a sense of the most classic shit, right? I gotta be honest with you, man, like, it's not very good. Like, I mean, it's okay. Some of it is all right, but you can't just be all right in this rap shit. So let me finish off with the BDK thing and I'll come back to the whole thing about UK rap in general. So the thing is, obviously, people are going to side with BDK right off the bat because BDK is a legendary artist. And frankly, Big Daddy Kane is a nice guy. I've never met Big Daddy Kane personally, but I have seen him live once, maybe. And he was just a gentleman on stage. Great, for a guy his age, like, gives a great show. So you can tell that this is someone who clearly loves his fans. He loves rap. He seems like a super nice dude, honestly. And he's a Brooklyn, right? And it's interesting because Kane, in a way, has matured in a way that I think other rappers haven't, if that makes sense. Because you got to remember, right? From what I've heard, Kane back in the day was a different beast. I mean, he was, he'll get it in, right, basically. And I think even some of that old Brooklyn came out a little bit when he was on stage. But the point is that he's a nice dude. That's how he comes across. He comes across as like a respectful, gentlemanly guy. You're not going to see Big Daddy Kane, dressing in 3XL throwbacks and all that bullshit, right? Like he's, a man of a certain age. But he puts a lot of work and effort to this day into his shows. So that's, by the way, if you haven't seen Kane live, I actually really recommend it. I think Kane is one of the stronger hip hop performers out here without a doubt. So the point is that Kane is a star. People like Kane. So obviously they're going to side with Kane. And I'm saying on top of that, Kane seems to be a really nice guy. So he's not somebody that's just going to start some shit. So it was disappointing to see that. And all of a sudden you're like, who the fuck? Like, why would you even disrespect Kane like that? Because again, Kane doesn't carry himself as somebody who disrespects or puts down others. So you already have that going against you. And then when people find out that, oh, you're just some arrogant nobody, that's basically how it comes across. You're an arrogant nobody who's trying to get your clout up off of Kane, then we're going to really clown you. You know what I mean? And, I tried to listen to some of Hijack's stuff. I got to be honest with you. This shit was kind of weak to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand that there's some of the pioneers of UK rap or whatever. They were rapping at a time when not a lot of people in the UK were rapping. But I heard like one or two songs. I think there was a song called Style Wars. And maybe another song. And I was just like, there's nothing special about the song at all, right? Like, okay, you guys are one of the first to rap, I guess, in the UK. But, I compare you to contemporaries at that time in 88 or 87 when this came out. I mean, this is nowhere near the level of dope that people in the US were coming out. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. So it got me thinking. This whole thing about the United States and the UK, right? And people like that sort of like when the Americans come and they run the media landscape, they run the media world, and they're respected everywhere. And I can understand that to a certain extent. Like when you're not an American, there's a way you feel about it. I'm Canadian, so I understand that shit. I understand like totally that feeling when you got American, even not so known American acts that come down to Canada and get worshipped, and you're going like, yo, like I'm out here. Like I'm sure other guys out here, like y'all don't pay attention to rap here, but you're gonna dick suck some, American, right, who's making the shit. So I get that feeling and I understand where they're coming from, and I don't think it's right to just be on the Americans' nuts like that. I understand that. But the flip side of it is then make sure your shit is as good, if not way better than theirs, if you can do it. Drake now is obviously the biggest artist in rap. Drake became that huge artist because Drake, for the first time in my opinion, in Canadian or even especially Canadian, but even rap history, it was the first time I believe a Canadian rap act was as good, if not better, than what people were coming out with in the United States at that time. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I love a Socrates and I love Mathematic and a lot of the guys, and even Cardinal, who paved the way. We're not talking about Frat Maestro. We're going to mention him too. Shout out to Maestro Fresh West and the fam. So the point is, I get it. I respect the people in Canada that tried to do it and did their part. You know what I mean? Because Canadian rap is actually pretty decent. I think it's way better than UK rap, if you ask my honest opinion. But my point is that when they were doing it, they were competing against Nas, Hove, Big, like Snoop. Like they were competing against some massive talents with massive budgets, massive marketing budgets, producing budgets. Like it just wasn't gonna happen. And I hate to say it, but it's talent plus the money plus the whole shit, right? So Canadian rap to me was not quite on par. Like it was good, it was cool, but it wasn't that new shit. And Drake And Boy Wonder, that shit was the first time I think that Canadian rap and what was coming out in the mainstream, like Drake was actually better than the mainstream. And that's how that shit happens. Okay? So my point is, you gotta be better. You know what I mean? I've heard some of the UK rap that LXO put me onto. It's cool. You know what I mean? I'm yet to hear a song that really blows me the fuck away. Honestly. Like on some like, yo, I'm gonna add this to my playlist and listen to this constantly type shit. I've never heard a UK record to this day that does that shit for me. Respectfully. You know, I've heard songs that are cool. I've talked about Gigs. I like Gigs. I like his vocal tone. I like the that hilarious grunt ad lib. I think it's fire, but I don't think it's translated into one like incredible rap record. You know what I'm saying? And I've heard, you know, Talking to Hardest. Yeah, that shit's cool. It's dope. It's better than a lot of shit. I'm even probably around that time, but it's not the best shit. You know what I'm saying? You got to be ahead of the curve. And I think that's my message to anybody who's outside of the United States trying to make rap music. Because you got to understand it from their perspective, especially from a New York perspective. If I'm a rapper, right? Having lived in Brooklyn, hung out in the US a lot, hung out in New York, going, you know, partying in Queens, I know what it's like. I understand the energy. So to me, if I'm a rapper making records, I'm thinking to myself, yo, this record, is this going to make somebody in Queens? Is this going to make someone in Brooklyn, in Harlem, in the Bronx? Is this going to make them lose their shit? Because if it's not, it's probably not on point. And again, I understand that sometimes when you're ahead of the curve, you're not going to get everyone to love your shit right away. I get it. But the point is that the heads, though, right? The heads are going to know. You know what I'm saying? Like 808 Mellow, in my opinion, and I've said this, is the best UK producer I've ever heard to this day, rap-wise, because them beats were some new shit. You know what I'm saying? Like Dior, when I was in Brooklyn when Dior came out, and everybody was like, oh shit, damn, that's like, you know what I'm saying? Again, if you're not making that next level shit that people can really fuck with, they're not gonna check for you. Or they're gonna look at you as like, oh, that's cute, little brother, little bro. And they'll little bro you all the time. You know what I mean? And I think this is kind of the tension sometimes that can kind of exist with the UK or just any region that's outside of the United States. And personally for me as an artist, I don't like being little bro. I'm not into that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you see me with Blood World and all that. I'm not trying to be little bro. I'm not just making some shit where I'm like, oh, you know, it's like the black version of anime. Nah, I'm making some next level shit. You know what I'm saying? I love, you know, Japanese stuff. I've been to Japan. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to make that shit that even the people in Japan are like, oh my God, that's the best shit I've ever seen in my life. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't like that feeling of being little bro, right? Like, I'm not into copying people just to belong and all that stuff. And I do think that sometimes, actually not even sometimes, I think a lot of times, judging from what I see even out here in Canada, a fair amount of Canadian producers, rappers, people in the industry, they just copy what the people in the US do because they want to belong, they want to play the part. It's the costume, they want to wear the hat with the chain and all that. But it's like, you're just a follower, right? Like, you got to come with some new shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, who the fuck wants to be a follower? Like, I mean, a lot of people want to be followers, but my point is, you're not going to get respect by being a follower. You're going to get respect by being a leader. And to be a leader, you got to have leader ideas. You know what I'm saying? That's it. You got to do your homework and then be a fucking leader. And I think that's where UK, in my opinion, has been missing. Now, I'm willing to be proven wrong. If you in the UK and you know like great UK rap that I just haven't had an opportunity to hear, that's leadership. I'm not talking about this was cool. You know, I say all this as Fill Me In is in the background. This was hot. I remember when this came out. I mean, this is garage, right? Two-step garage or whatever y'all call it. I like this record. I think it's classic. But again, you know, this was different. You know what I mean? When Craig David came out with this shit, it was like, oh, what is this shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta do something different, man. You know what I'm saying? Different and cool and almost kind of like the next thing, right? And I think that's where, again, like I come back to this. A lot of regions outside the US, they don't understand that. And that's why, and then they get mad like, oh, nobody's paying attention to us. Well, yeah, like, I mean, why would they? You're not the leader, right? It's the same thing I see with people in the South or in the West who are like, New York didn't accept us. Well, why would they? You're not very good. You're not leading shit. Now, if you come with something completely, you've studied all our shit and you do it better than we do, of course they're gonna fucking pay attention to you because they have to. You know what I'm saying? And that's where the respect comes through, and that's where your region gets put on the map. But until that happens, you're Stan essentially. You're just and it's like, okay, you fan, play your role as a fan, just buy our shit. When we come through, suck our dick, buy our shit, and give us hospitality, and then we out. You know what I'm saying? And I hate to say it, but that's how a lot of people think. You know what I'm saying? Low key. So, long story short, that assault or that whole stage thing shouldn't have happened. Where the hell was Kane's security? But I understand they probably looked at it as like, well, he's a performer, so they didn't probably rush him right away. They were trying to figure out what was going on. Otherwise, they probably would have maybe jumped him, or maybe they were shook. I don't know. I'm not gonna put that on Kane's security. But my point is, always strive for excellence. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta understand, man. Like, and I will be in New York actually in a week or so. But you gotta understand, like, New Yorkers invented rap. Fuck what everyone else is talking about, okay? That's just what I believe in based on research and common sense, whatever. They invented the shit. They're very good at it. They made it what it was, and they got a head start on everybody else, right? So the point is that if you're gonna do hip hop, you gotta understand that you're copying something that came out of their region. So you gotta study them, right? You gotta go to New York if you can. You gotta study what makes people in New York. Why do they gravitate to certain things? Why do they leave certain sounds alone and embrace boom bap, for example? What was it about that the thing that Marley was doing that made it so unique and so dope? Well, it was obviously because when you could actually program your own drums, and you weren't just using sort of like this old drum machine, but you were sampling drums and lifting drums and replaying them in your own kind of way in that lunchroom, that energy that made people go, oh shit. But my point is that New Yorkers who invented this were ahead of the curve, okay? And they had a certain thing where they're like, okay, we put this out there, we created this shit. So if you're gonna do us and you want us to respect you, you gotta show that you're on the same level of us, at least, if not better. And then we might give you some respect. Even then, you might not get respect, but you know what? Hip hop is worldwide. So even if people in New York don't respect you, we'll notice everywhere else that you did your work, right? And New Yorkers will give it up too. But again, you gotta strive for excellence. And a lot of this UK shit, I gotta be honest with you, the stuff I heard wasn't cutting it. Not in the rap sense, anyways. Now, I'm not a grime person. I've tried to listen to grime. Grime is like too stiff for me personally. Especially in the rap sense, it's kind of like this messy hodgepodge of dance hall and like dance. And like, it's just not my thing. You know what I mean? So grime will probably never really be my thing. I'm yet to hear a grime song that I like love. Again, I've heard like, I think Wiley did a song called Igloo, whatever, the beat. It was okay. I haven't been to London in a really long time. I think the last time I was in London was in 2000s, like 2000 literally, I think, when Annie Up was out. I remember that because Annie Up and Let's Get Dirty by Redman were the songs, and I was just like, anyway. So the point is, if I go to UK club and I see grime in its element, maybe I'll fall in love with it and I'll see it because there is something to be said for being in the environment of where this music is created. But I also do think that, again, if you're going to make hip-hop is its own thing. You got to understand the rules of hip-hop, and then you can introduce your thing into it. And I think 808 Mellow did that phenomenally well. And I'm waiting for the next person to do something like that. If you're going to introduce that, the on some UK shit, understand the rules of hip-hop, okay? And then introduce something we haven't really quite seen before that still fits into hip-hop, but it's some next-level shit. And that's when people can go, yeah, we fuck with y'all. You know what I mean? All right, y'all. Peace.